Welcome to our Stronger Thread podcast. I'm Carly.
I'm Caély.
I'm Mom.
On today's episode, we've invited our mom Jean, to join us. As you guys know, on our podcast, where we explore the threads of resilience, strength, and the connection through the lives of individuals and families facing life's toughest and most challenging journeys. Each episode, we share inspiring stories of personal growth, perseverance, and the bonds that hold us together in the face of adversity. On today's episode, we have invited our special guest, our mom, to work through her perspective of the BRCA gene, and also having two daughters who have gone through breast cancer and everything that comes with it. She'll also share her journey of how she's looked at the BRCA gene, things that she's done personally to prevent cancer going forward, and take us through like her perspective, like we said. So this conversation is a testament to the power of family and the strengths that moms have. So we're super excited to have you with us. Thank you for joining us.
You will.
So, Mom, do you want to kind of introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you. I know we know you personally, but our viewers would love to get to know you a little bit more.
Sure. Well, of course, as you know, I am the mother of these two very resilient women. I was a pharmacy tech. I was a school teacher, but my greatest accomplishment, of course, is being the mother of these children as well as my other three. Before all things started with these two young ladies, I knew nothing about the BRCA gene. Nothing. My parents passed away when I was younger, and I knew that I had relatives, aunts, uncles who died of cancer, but way back then, no one knew about genetic testing, nor would they have dreamed that we carried something that we could pass on to our children that could form cancer. So I basically learned all I know about BRCA gene after Caély started with cancer.
Thanks, Caély, for leading the way.
No.
To start mess.
As a mom, you really wish you knew this ahead of time so that you could prepare your children for that. But again, it kind of worked in reverse. My children had it, which led to me being educated on it.
Yeah. So today's episode, we want to truly educate you guys, not only, her perspective as a mom who carries the gene and a mom who has daughters with cancer, but also taking you through what the BRCA gene is and what it isn't. So we'll start with kind of what it is. So every single person carries the BRCA gene. Our BRCA gene, we have what's called a BRCA2 mutation. And basically what that means is our gene is broken. And people that carry the BRCA2 gene, and then theirs is broken, carry a greater risk of not only having breast cancer, but also ovarian cancer in women. Men tend to have an increased risk of prostate cancer and also an elevated risk of breast cancer. And men do get breast cancer as well. So that's a misconception out there, but men can get breast cancer. And so basically what the job of the BRCA gene is, since everybody has one, everybody's BRCA gene is a gene that really helps change the genetic code. So when it works, it goes ahead and plays a crucial role in repairing DNA. So if breast cancer cells start to pop up in your body, the BRCA gene is the gene that goes ahead and repairs that DNA and kills the cancer cells in the moment. Since ours is broken, ours doesn't kill the breast cancer cells, and it just lets them grow rampant. And that's why in our case, I had an 84% chance of getting breast cancer because that's how mutated my BRCA gene was. It is passed on by one of the parents. So your fathers can pass it on, your moms can pass it on. And if you do carry the BRCA gene, so Caély and I have a 50% chance of passing it on to our children. And I think in the last episode, we did talk about kind of what that looks like and what we're planning on testing our kids with. So if you want more information, go back to episode 4, Caély, I think it was, and you can find more information on that. But yep, so we can pass it down to our children. There's a 50% chance. We're fingers crossed, hoping not. And if not, we understand the consequences of passing that down. There is a BRCA1 gene mutation typically That is seen in certain Jewish descents, certain ethnic profiles of people that have the BRCA1 gene. It's more seen in. So it's important to talk to not only your doctor, but they also have geneticists out there that can help you with all the different mutations that you possibly could have that leave you predisposed to higher risk of cancers. Caély, anything you want to add to that?
Just a reminder, we're not medical professionals. We're just people
Correct.
who have experienced this personally, and we're just sharing our understanding of everything. And we do our best to make sure that all the information we do provide is very well researched. So we're not just giving our opinions on stuff. I feel like that's
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And the more you know, like the more you can attack something, or the more educated you are, the less scary it is. So when we were first diagnosed, it is pretty scary if you don't know. But the more you know about it, you're like, okay, so I have a broken gene. So what can we do? And there are now medications out there that can help with BRCA specific gene mutations in breast cancer. So definitely work with your physician to see what options you have available. All right, Caély, I'll let you take it off and let's start grilling mom.
all right. So we are actually going to be doing a couple interview questions today, Mom. So all you have to do is just share your personal experiences. We're not going to ask you anything that's, you need to be a professional to answer. This is just Bridgette's experience throughout this journey that we've all had together. So first, we kind of wanted to, introduce the BRCA gene. Carly's talked about the scientific approach behind it, but we want to get your perspective. So can you start by telling us about your understanding of the BRCA gene and how you first learned about its presence and
Sure. Of course, like Kaylee said, we're definitely not medical professionals. So I had no knowledge of this gene prior to. And, in lay terms, all I know is that, we all carry genes. All our genes have a different job to do. And just as Carly pointed out, the BRCA gene has a job to do, and ours is just broken. So it doesn't do the job it's supposed to. The way I first learned about it was Kaylee was our younger daughter who had thyroid cancer. And about 6 months later, I think it was, and Kaylee, when you actually started where, you were tested or found out that you had breast cancer 6 months later. So through that, the people at MD Anderson are the ones who said, this girl's just too young to have two different kinds of cancer.
completely
So
unrelated?
young and unrelated. Let's do some genetic testing. Prior to that, when you hear the word genetic testing, you think, oh God, that's like, that you got to go through a whole series of events, or what's all involved in getting genetically tested. Come to find out, it's nothing more than a blood test. So Kaylee was tested first, and they found out that she had BRCA2 gene. Her gene was broken. And they said, well, it's got to come from somewhere. It's either going to be from her mom or her dad's side. So they went ahead and they did they asked me to go ahead and do genetic testing. And I went to my doctor, and all I did was got a script to go to the lab and do a blood test. Found out that yes, it was me that carried the BRCA2 gene mutation. And so we didn't need to really do her dad's side. And that's basically where I learned that I carried the gene too. Well, since I had my other daughter, Carly, and I could pass it on to her as well as any of my children, my three boys. Carly was also tested. My younger son was tested. My two older boys, still hoping they get tested because they have younger daughters. My son did not carry the gene. And I have one brother and one sister who is much older than me. So I have nieces and nephews. I had two nieces that were tested. One did carry the BRCA gene mutation, and the other niece and nephew did not. So that's basically where I learned about it.
Yeah. So whenever you found out that you carried the BRCA gene, I mean, it wasn't a massive surprise because you said dad didn't get tested, but like when you found out, what was your gut reaction for you personally and your medical stance?
When I first found out about it, it wasn't that like I didn't never even thought, and until even today, I never think about, you know, or worried that I was going to develop cancer. My thought, I guess, was a motherly one was, wow, if I'd only known, could I have prevented some kind of way for my girls from what they were going through? That was my initial reaction. It still is, I knew that from that point on, like Carly said, the more you know, the more educated on any subject, you can better help yourself, you can better help your family. And, I never worried about if I was going to develop cancer. I just was very disappointed that I didn't know ahead of time as a parent. But, people don't go around saying, let me get genetically tested. And insurances don't say, hey, come on over for your visit. We're going to do this exam and test you for everything. So, but one thing I do want to say is that if you do have this in your family, if you have any knowledge of your aunts, uncles, mother, grandmother that carried or had, well, not carried, but had some kind of breast cancer or ovarian cancer, your insurances, most of them will pay for that blood test. So it's as easy as that.
Yeah, the test has definitely come down. Insurances are more open now to testing you for it. So, like Mom said, if you have any family history of breast cancer, ovarian cancer, if you're a guy that has a history of prostate cancer, definitely go get tested, because these cancers that are led by the BRCA mutation can typically be a little bit more aggressive, but they only make up a small subset of those with breast cancer. But, your risks are drastically higher. Like I said, mine was 84%. Caély, I think yours was right at 80% because of the gene mutation you had.
87.
87. So yeah, we had it. It was really high up there. So definitely go get tested. And it's just a simple blood draw. It doesn't hurt. You get used to being a pincushion after a certain point in time.
So, Mom, one of the biggest things that we all kind of had a lot of decisions to make whenever we found out about our genetics is you and even our cousin who haven't had cancer, y'all both chose to undergo prophylactic procedures. However, you chose to wait until after Carly and I were both done with our treatments before you worried about getting your own procedures done. What kind of impacted that decision? And, can you tell us a little bit about why you chose to wait instead of getting it done right away?
Well, first of all, think your mom, you need to be there for your two children who are going through these times. I also had a mother-in-law who was very sick. Remember Granny? Mm-hmm. Granny was very sick, and I knew that if I went through the prophylactic mastectomy, I was going to not be able to lift on her and move her around. So there was a lot of other people that I felt I needed to help at the time. But in the same instance, that doesn't mean that I neglected myself. At the same time, my doctor was working with me. She knew that I needed to have this done, because at one point when Carly, we already knew you had it, but then when Carly had it, my breast surgeon said, hey, you really are playing Russian roulette right now. So if we're not ready to do the prophylactic mastectomy, we're going to have to at least do every 6 months. I went ahead and I did breast MRI, and then I had my mammogram. So every 6 months, she was watching me until the time came when I was able to go ahead and do those procedures.
Yeah, I mean, that's good that you stayed on top of it. Mm-hmm. I know we all had very close conversations about like where everybody was, and it was a lot at one time, so kind of planning out what that looked like. Yeah. So when, I know when we were going through treatment, you had not only one daughter, but then who was pregnant at the time. So you had to deal with that piece of it. Then knowing your other daughter got it, how did you deal with those emotions that came with not only us going through treatment, but knowing in the back of your mind that, you had to get that surgery done? That seemed like it was a lot.
Well, anybody who knows our family, I don't think they would doubt that, we've had complications along the way, but it's the way that we handled things. It wasn't. I don't think any of us looked at what we were going through as, we all just kind of sat back and said, there are so many others that have so many worse things happening. We all had a really good family support system. So, you just take one day at a time and say, we're going to get through this just like any other journey through life. We're talking specifically about the BRCA mutation, but I mean, there's so many families that are going through so many other illnesses. And again, I love the fact that you two girls are trying to share your experiences, your knowledge, and most of all, encouraging people to learn about whatever they have. Yeah. Learn firsthand about what they're going through. Don't just take the, the news that's coming through. Go ahead, research it. You've got girls have taught us so much about, it's more than just going into a hospital when you have a disease or when you have cancer. Your body, there's a whole body approach that needs to be tended to. We just kind of never took the easy road out there. You just kind of all just supported each other. So it was a lot, but looking back, I mean, every family has their journey.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think if you take it all on at once, it's overwhelming. Right. So we knew going forward, Caély kind of led the way with what treatment looks like for breast cancer. So by the time I got it, we kind of knew what it looked like. So it was almost like a check on the journey. That's why we started the countdowns, or, we just went through it together and we knew what to expect. And it just became part of our life.
Yeah.
A not so good part of our life, but we managed through it. And like Mom said, there's people that have it so much worse.
Absolutely.
We had access to fantastic doctors, Caély with MD Anderson, myself with UF here in Florida. So to be able to have access to medicine, you're already
way above a lot of people. Some people don't have that. Some people are going through this all by themselves, which is really tough.
Yeah, so hard.
Speaking of support systems, Mom, how did you support me and Carly whenever we were going through treatments? And who ended up supporting you during your treatments or your procedures that you chose to go through to prevent things?
Well, I think we kind of, at your time when you first started, you had a little baby and you were pregnant again when you found out that you had breast cancer. So, I mean, as a grandmother, as a mother, you just tried to be there for whatever you needed, take care of the baby, encourage you. We definitely have taken turns bringing each other to doctor visits. Absolutely. Taking turns taking care of each other after surgeries, and I think we're blessed to have that.
I just want to go back to taking care of each other after surgeries. Those have been bonding moments for sure.
Yeah.
You think right after, I know a lot of women can relate, right after you have a baby, that nurse that is in the room with you is a godsend. I don't know how they do their job, but oh my goodness, to have somebody help you go to the restroom after, you're like, thank you, thank you, thank you. So it's the very same thing after these procedures, because all three of us have gone through mastectomies, reconstruction surgery as well. All three of us have gone through hysterectomies as well. So there are a lot of fun times that come with surgeries. Wonderful times.
There are a lot of moments that we really can't discuss right now on the air because
you get real familiar with people when you need help.
You do. But we were lucky to be there for each other,
For sure.
Absolutely.
Some good bonding moments. You look back.
You didn't think you were familiar enough with your family before, you will after these things.
And the new bodies that we got because of the surgeries.
Yeah, those are fun.
Good stuff. Moving on. So you've talked about how, Colby got tested. Caély and I obviously have been tested. And then Courtney and Cody, so how do you think you're going to be able to support the next generation? So like your grandkids, because they come with the risk of carrying the breast cancer gene as well.
They do. First and foremost, the girls know, and I think pretty much anybody that knows me knows that I'm a very faith-filled person. And without my faith, I could not have gone through all of this, especially having two girls that had breast cancer. The word cancer in itself is just such a scary word now. Cancer is scary, but you think about all the other diseases people have too. It's just another thing that you need to handle. I hope and pray first and foremost that my grandkids don't have to go through that, but they'll be so far ahead of the curve than what we were because, their parents are educated enough and we know that ahead of time. So, they'll be able to be tested early. And that's a given. So they'll have way in advance as to what they need to have done.
I know Caély and I talked about like the next step and when we're going to get our kids tested, but I also hope like that science has pushed forward enough to where, we have something to be able to fix the gene. I know for us personally, my husband and I decided to bank Emerson's cord blood, just God forbid, in case she has the gene, who knows what the cord blood can do with, the different mutations that are out there or, stem cell research that's going on. So, things like that we have been very proactive with. Exactly.
So, Mom, talking about the prophylactic procedures, can you walk us through your own journey of undergoing your prophylactic procedure and like what were some of the challenges and the reliefs you felt before and after your surgery?
I guess the first and foremost, I didn't know when I had my hysterectomy that I didn't know. I didn't go in like I know you girls had both the hysterectomy and the mastectomy as your procedures. When I had my hysterectomy, it was because I had an issue way before we knew we carried the gene. So, hindsight, you wonder if those issues didn't occur because of the gene and was maybe the beginning of something that was going to go bad, but we caught it early. And again, my doctor just knew that I was going through some things that wasn't normal. We did the hysterectomy, and it wasn't until years later that we found out that I carried the gene. Like we talked about earlier, I waited to have the prophylactic mastectomy. And I guess after you girls had gone through that, a lot of women, when they have to think about, I'm going to go through this procedure and there's nothing wrong with me at the time, that's a tough thing to do. Yeah. That's a tough thing to say. I'm going to go in and cut a body part off that at the time, I don't think anything's wrong with it, but we kind of didn't look at it that way. It's because both of you had already had your cancer, and my breast surgeon, she was very good, and not just medically, but emotionally to talk to you about things. I didn't look at it that way. You didn't look at it was, oh my goodness, I'm going to cut a body part off. It was like, okay, I really don't need this. And I'd much rather not worry about developing breast cancer. So this is just one way that I can help to prevent it. And that's kind of the way we looked at it. It was just another surgery. And because I didn't have cancer at the time, it wasn't as detailed of a surgery, I guess, because you girls had to have lymph nodes removed and you had all body tumors parts removed and all of those things while you were doing that. Yeah. Whereas I just had a basic mastectomy and it was...
No, you went and chose the DIEP flap route. So yours was pretty tricky.
Invasive, yeah.
Well, it was invasive, but
recovery was ridiculous too.
Recovery was because, we don't do anything easy. We just don't do anything easy. When I went in for my mastectomy, about, I guess, a few hours later, they noticed that my blood pressure was dropping and they had to go back in. and I had some vessels that weren't, because I chose the deep surgery. I chose that. Everybody has a different reason.
But can we just identify what that particular procedure is?
Sure. It's instead of having implants, I chose to use my own body
tissue.
Yeah, tissue to rebuild, to reconstruct. So I was at an age where I don't want to have to go back under to have my implants fixed, or as we age, something, Lord knows, things
Where they get recalled.
Recalled. Yeah. So I chose not to have implants and to use my own body tissue. That was a little more difficult of a surgery than a lot of people choose. But again, it wasn't something that a whole lot of people don't choose to do. There's a lot of the procedures have come around where, those are pretty common now.
Yeah. Hey, we don't want to downplay because it is a big decision.
It is a big decision.
And I love that you talked about, a lot of times when people think about carrying the BRCA gene, the ironic part about this gene is that it is, a lot of people refer to as the pink gene, or, the breast cancer gene. And people, women especially, identify themselves with their chest or their ovaries, and that's who makes them a woman. So this particular gene affects both of those. And a lot of people, whenever they make this decision, their identity shifts, and it's very hard to find, am I removing my womanhood because of these surgeries? And I think that's the biggest hesitancy that I've seen with women making this decision, is they don't want to lose their womanhood per se. They're scared that they are going to be perceived differently because they've had to remove their breast. Even if they have reconstruction, it's not their original breast, or a hysterectomy, and all of the different hormonal changes that happen because of getting rid of your ovaries. It is a process, but just know that you're not losing yourself or your womanhood by any means. I am still very, very much a woman because of all the surgeries that we've had.
Absolutely.
And it is a big decision. And there are multiple different surgeries out there that, can help you with whatever stage of life you are in. I commend you for making that decision because it's not easy. Even after seeing your two daughters go through everything we have gone through, you still made that decision, and you went through a major surgery. And the recovery time was very difficult, but you did it because you knew that that was the best option for yourself.
Absolutely. If you don't prepare for that early, I didn't want to hold on to my breast just simply because you don't want to lose your womanhood. But yet, down the road, you could develop this cancer that you could have prevented. People have trouble with their tonsils. You don't think twice to take them out. You have trouble with your gallbladder. You don't think twice to take it out. Yeah, it's a body part.
Yep.
And it's not who you are. I think my biggest change for me doesn't come from that at all. It comes from the fact that we are BRCA2 positive. Both of your tumors were estrogen driven. I've never been able to take hormones after my hysterectomy. And I think that probably causes more problems than actually losing my breast.
That's a great,
Yeah,
that's a good point.
So, and there's lots of women who have had hysterectomies and have the same problem, you know.
So just identifying, even if you do have a hysterectomy after, your BRCA gene still plays a part in, your ongoing therapies to prevent cancer from happening. So that's a great point as well. So, I love that advice you've given throughout the entire part is, how to help people. So the BRCA gene is just one genetic mutation that's out there. There's a ton of other mutations. How would you prepare other parents going through gene mutation conversations with their kids? Like, what is one piece of advice that you would tell a parent who knows they have a gene and that they possibly could pass it on to their kids?
Don't be afraid to talk to them. Don't be afraid, especially down here in South Louisiana, all live with heart disease. My parents both had heart attacks. I knew nothing about their genetic makeup. Just as you would speak to your children about if you have high blood pressure that runs in the family, if you have heart disease that runs in the family, don't be afraid to talk to them about this cancer mutation, this gene that could cause cancer. It's just another makeup of something that your family carries on. So I think the more they know about it, the more educated that they can be, the better that they can protect themselves, to prevent the bad cancer. You can maybe stop some things ahead of time.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So let's start talking about some reflection here. Looking back, Mom, how do you feel about the decision for undergoing the genetic testing and all the subsequent choices that were made based on those?
Well, again, you really wish, I really wish I had no knowledge of a genetic test prior to you having cancer. I didn't know you could actually walk into your doctor's office and say, hey, I want to be genetically tested. That was just something that you heard on TV, or that was a foreign type thing that only very sick people did. And actually, it shouldn't be for very sick people. You can have it's a preventative. So if people can look at it as prophylactically doing the genetic testing to find out, you may be surprised. People do these genealogy tests all the time. What is it, 23andMe or all these tests, and you find out
I have a few of them.
Right. You find out all these things about your ancestors. This genetic testing is just like it. So, hindsight, I wish I knew a lot more about it prior to my girls having cancer. Then maybe we could have been more prepared. So parents out there, I would definitely recommend looking into your family history. I never would have thought to say, hey, what kind of cancer did Aunt Grace die of? Or what kind of cancer did Aunt Pat die of? You just, those are things that you just say, oh, they died of cancer, not what kind. So don't be afraid to ask your elders, hey, what
Dig
do we
into the
have in our
detail.
family? Yeah, dig and find out, because digging in the past can also help your future generation.
Yeah, love that. It's always easier to look back. Hindsight's 2020, but if we can be proactive for the next generations, or for anybody that's out there, to educate them, I think is a great thing. So, we've talked a lot about in our podcast about strength and resilience, and everything that cancer has brought into our lives, both good and bad. But, we have had a lot of good things that have happened because of our cancer journey and because of the BRCA gene. So, how do you think this experience has shaped our family's legacy with dealing with health challenges, or any challenges? Because we've had a lot of challenges within our family. So, what are the the good things that have come from it, that resilient piece of it?
Well, I mean, anytime you're going to take care of somebody after they've gone through one of the roughest times in their life, you build an even stronger bond.
Yeah.
So, family wise, I think we were always close, but I think we've shared things that most families have not gone through, and you wouldn't wish them to go through. That wouldn't be something you'd wish them to have.
But it's memories we've gotten, and we said that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you only go through this life one time. We are all going to only go through it one time. This is just our journey. So, again, so many other people have their journeys look different. They have different illnesses. Some of them are going through illnesses that they don't understand, but they also medically don't have a whole lot of access to the services they need. And you girls were blessed with that. So I guess that's what I would think, that we just have grown closer together, and we always, want to use what we know to educate someone else.
Yeah.
Because we wish we would have known.
Yeah. And grow from it. Like, you take that experience and you're like, yep, I lived through it. Great. And I'm stronger because of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love it.
Now, going forward, it's still scary. My daughter Carly is still going through it. It's a daily journey, but we go through it together. So, and she's blessed with a wonderful husband that, that supports her.
And a great sense of humor about it, too.
Absolutely. What else are you going to do at this point?
Yeah.
It becomes a chronic disease, and you said that earlier in the episode. Like, it just is one of those things that you're just going to keep dealing with. It's like almost like managing diabetes. Like, there are things that I have to do differently, that we have to do differently as a family to support each other through this, because it's not only me going through this. And that's why I think it was so important to have you here today, was to get your perspective of not only the BRCA gene and how you've personally dealt with it, but also like how you have helped support Caély and I, and what it looks like going forward, because you guys deal with those emotions as well. I was talking to a mom of the little girl at the time was about 2 or 3 when she was diagnosed with leukemia, and the mom and family had gotten the little girl through, and thankfully she is now 6 years old and is leukemia free. I think she's right at a year leukemia free. And so wonderful thing. She was able to go through treatment and it worked, but the mom still carried such a weight on her shoulders of, did she do something wrong? Or even moving on and going forward with a job, what does that look like? Can I leave her be because I've had to be with her for so long? And what if something happens? So that fear is always there. It's how do you as a parent kind of work through those feelings yourself to be able to support not only myself, but, in my case, Emerson and Pierce. God forbid something happen, or even through this journey. And if they have if they have the BRCA gene, like Caély's kids, so how do we help support that next generation? So I love your perspective you brought to today. So thank you so much. I know it's not easy to share those things. So Caély, you have anything you want to add?
No, y'all pretty much covered it. Just appreciating everybody's journeys. They're all going to be different, and don't let what's happening now bog you down. It's just, like you said, a checklist. What's the next step? This needs to be accomplished. Making checklists really does, mental checklists are real. They do help. Especially don't look at the whole of it at one time.
Yep.
It's a game changer.
Could be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Exactly. One step at a time.
Yeah, I love that. Well, if you like today's episode or have any questions for Mom or Bridgette, feel free to message us. And as always, we appreciate the time that you guys take to watch our podcast and look into, how you can get stronger, or share those vulnerable moments like we're sharing. We look forward to our next podcast, and thank you guys again for joining.
If you have anybody that that may benefit from the information that these 2 girls can share, please share it with them. Share the podcast with them, because a lot of times people are scared to talk to other people who have cancer. They're afraid. They tiptoe around them. They don't know what to say to someone that's been diagnosed. So the best thing to do is help them become more educated. So please share this information with them.
Well, until we see y'all again, peace out, home skillet.
Bye, guys.
Bye.